Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to Old Man Rambles. I had something else recorded that I was going to put up today, but I had a thought that I thought that, given the timing of it, I thought this might be a bit more appropriate. Um, Mother's Day is coming up, so we're spending some time with my wife's mother, my mother-in-law, trying to do things with her, keep her occupied. And as usual in times like this, my thoughts go to my mother. My mother died a long time ago, over 40 years ago now. And I was thinking about how young my mother was when she died. My mother was 34. And, we were driving home. We had taken my mother-in-law out. We were driving home, yada, yada. And I was just thinking about things. And again, thinking about how young my mother was when she died. And it struck me that my oldest daughter will be turning 34 in a couple of months. My daughter is basically about the same age as my mother when she died. And it was this weird, there's this weird juxtaposition in my head of these two people on either side of me. My mother kind of frozen in time, always 34, and my daughter, who is a growing woman and who is still a part of my life, and how I view them. And I realize that you view your parents differently than your children, but there's this, I will always view my mother as being more mature than I am, in spite of the fact that she died so young and died at 34. And I still view my daughter as being less mature than I am because she's my child. There is still that part of my, your brain compartmentalizes things, parents, children. But thinking about those things too is, looking at their life experiences as well. My mother was the oldest daughter of a family of 5. Her father died in a car accident when she was 14. Her mother died of cancer when she was 20. She helped raise her younger siblings. She got pregnant at 17, dropped out of school, married my father, had another child a few years later. When her mother died, she struggled for custody of her 3 younger siblings because her mother had remarried to try and provide for her children because she knew she was dying. And her sibling's stepfather was not abusive, but exceedingly neglectful. He had his own children, which he took care of, and her sisters got nothing. They were they were basically given enough to stay alive, and that, they got nothing. His kids, anyway. She had a teenage son at the age of 34. She had a middle school age daughter. She owned her own business. She had all these hobbies and interests and things that she did. And I think, she had a difficult life. And I think that did mature her early. My daughter, I wouldn't say she's had an easy life, but she definitely has had an easier life than my mother did. My wife and I have worked hard to make sure that her life, had as few hardships as we could possibly handle, or possibly manage, I mean. For all my daughter works in a nursing home. She takes care of Alzheimer's patients. She's watched patients that she's cared for months die. So I do think she has a certain level of maturity that perhaps I mentally can't acknowledge. She, when my father-in-law passed away, her grandfather, she kind of put herself in work mode to help take care of him. So she could, she processed her grief later. While she was there taking care of him, she put herself in work mode. She's a competent young woman, or I guess at almost 34, she's pushing middle age, I guess. Damn, that sucks. My kid's pushing middle age. That hurts. Oh, that hurts. I am so fucking old. These kids. How dare they get old? How dare I get old? But yeah, I was like driving home in the dark at nighttime, just struck by these two things that are somewhat equal, but in my brain, they're not. You know, I really can't make them equal. My brain's not going to allow it. You know, my mother will always be here, my daughter will always be here. And, you know, because my mother is kind of frozen in time in my head, um, you know, these things don't really or won't change in my head. It was just a weird little juxtaposition thing, which I think kind of relates to Mother's Day. Um, and I wasn't sure, not say I don't know how to deal with it, but it's been on my mind quite a lot. I've been thinking about these little comparisons between my mother and my daughter because they're about the same age, and comparing their lives, comparing their life experiences, comparing what they've done and what they, you know, well, not what my mother does, but, you know, what my daughter does versus what my mother did. And I just, you know, it's, you know, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it for a few days now. Um, and I guess just wanted to, it was just something to throw out there. I have noticed that even though these are discoherent, disjointed ramblings, and even though I'm pretty sure I don't always get my words across, my point across properly, I have discovered that talking about them, even in the really crappy way in which I talk about things, it kind of helps my brain process them a little bit. So I guess that's one of the reasons I wanted to get this out there. Plus, it being Mother's Day, it's kind of timely. So there's that. Good hunting.